The strongest person in the room is often the most exhausted. Not visibly, not dramatically, quietly. The one who holds everything together rarely has someone holding them. Psychology calls this emotional suppression. Scripture calls it burden. And when strength becomes identity, it becomes isolation. In many families, churches, and organizations, one person becomes the stable one, the responsible one, the composed one, the dependable one, the one who never falls apart. You learned early that your emotion must be controlled. Over time, that role stopped being behavior and it became identity. You learn to regulate others, but you stop regulating yourself. You are no longer someone who is strong. You absorb tension. You minimize your own needs. That your composure protects others. You say, "I'm fine," even when you are not. You are the strong one. And identity is harder to release than habit. From a psychological perspective, consistent emotional suppression activates chronic stress response. You function well. You rarely collapse. But your nervous system stays in quiet vigilance. You anticipate problems before they happen. You absorb emotional tension in rooms. You stabilize chaos. But stabilization, without release, creates internal pressure. And pressure without outlet converts into fatigue, into irritability. Suppressed emotion does not disappear. It converts into fatigue, irritability, and emotional numbness. Numbness feels like strength, but it is not strength. It is overload, disguised as composure. The danger of being the strong one is that you become indispensable. And indispensability feels powerful. People rely on you, trust your steadiness, lean on your composure, and slowly you begin to believe, if I stop managing everything, everything will collapse. That belief keeps you in control. But control without community becomes isolation. You are needed, but rarely supported. And most often, you feel like a different person, like you are no ordinary, and you cannot be ordinary. As you feel a layer of responsibility upon your shoulders, you feel like you cannot fail, because failure seems to be measured upon you. Accountability is like a privilege that you indulge yourself too much into. Things that are not yours alone to handle. Like you are taking the lead, not just a supporting role. But what if no one supports you because they thought you are strong, enough to handle, to manage, to take everything into your account? Yes, you can. But remember, even heroes fall. As the most famous saying says, with great power comes great responsibility. And becoming a hero is being trapped into an identity which we cannot hold forever. For identity changes as one aged. That's how a person becomes trapped, when they hold on to an identity for so long that they fear, letting go of their strength and allowing their weakness to be seen. Scripture does not glorify isolated strength. Galatians 6:2 says, "Carry each other's burdens, not carry them alone. Even Christ withdrew. Even Christ rested. Even Christ asked his disciples, 'Could you not stay awake with me?'" Strength in Scripture was never independence. It was interdependence. That is a relationship where people rely on one another for support, for strength, and growth. It should be a mutual support. Each person has strength, but they also allow others to help, carry burdens. Interdependence is a mutual support. Yet many disciplined believers confuse silence with maturity. Silence in accepting their heavy load, that it was for them to carry. They suppress the feeling of weakness, in spirit, and even physically, and even emotionally. Suppression with holiness. But suppression, mistakenly, they compare it to sacrifice, but is not sanctification. It is not the right thing to do, and will never be equal to becoming spiritually set apart, to be transformed and live accordingly to, not to a person's will, but to a believer, the will of his divine Creator. Strength is not the absence of need. It is the ability to acknowledge need without losing composure. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Notice the paradox. Power is perfected in weakness, not in suppression, not in silent endurance, but in honest surrender. For it was written in Psalms 55:22, "Cast your burden upon the Lord, and He shall sustain you. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved." God does not ask people to carry everything alone. The act of casting burdens requires humility and surrender, not silent endurance. James 4 verse 6 says, "God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble." Scripture reminds us that correction is not rejection. In Proverbs 3 verse 11 to 12, it says, "Do not despise the Lord's discipline, for the Lord disciplines those He loves." Humility opens the way to wisdom. Because when pride resists correction, growth stops. But with humility, wisdom begins. If this discussion gave you something to think about, leave your perspective in the comments below. You can also support the work by liking the video and subscribing to The Quiet Authority Official. And if you enable notifications, you'll be updated whenever a new analysis is released. If you have always been the strong one, learn that strength does not mean carrying everything alone. Learn to receive support. Learn to rest. Learn to allow others to carry weight with you. Because even pillars require foundation. Even the strongest structures require support. Even leaders require covering. Strength is admirable, but unsupported strength is unstable. And perhaps that is why Christ gave His invitation in Gospel of Matthew 11:28 to 30. He said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Strength was never meant to become isolation, and humility is not weakness. It is the wisdom to finally set the burden down. Creator discipline.